Realized it till
700.
yesterday. Yesterday, I uploaded episode number 699. We interviewed Dr. Fox, an ophthalmologist who's still practicing,
Mm-hmm.
and he runs a niche CRO for ophthalmology, and he's the CEO
Wow.
of a
That's a
200-person CRO, and he's still on Fridays, I think, sees patients in his office in his private practice.
wow.
Crazy.
Ophthalmology is huge. Have you seen what ophthalmology is doing in research? Have you done any trials?
They are. I wish I got really close, and my PI retired
Oh
before we can get a
no.
study going. He was 90 something. Like it was gonna happen, but yes, they're on the cutting edge. Like that was the maybe that's a good segue for this episode.
Mm-hmm.
That was episode 699, guys. We are live. This is when it makes the podcast, which it will. Episode 700. I didn't even realize it till yesterday.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's I can't even remember when I started the podcast because the YouTube just happened 2010, and then podcast must have been around 2016 when I got serious about like having an official podcast. So we're on 700 now, guys, and
Look at that. I get to be part of history. Like one of those
Dr. Fox, man.
bookmarks. Yes.
Speaking of podcasts, your podcast, I'm really impressed with, man. Like
Thanks.
you put a lot of work into it. The skits, the way you interview one stakeholder and then another, basically the same questions, and then
Mm-hmm.
let the viewer or let the listener make their own conclusions, but you also help point it out.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
Yep.
cool, man.
Yeah.
Like I'm a little bit behind. You've probably released like 2 or 3 episodes that I'm behind on, but yeah, in the office, man, I try to brainwash my staff,
More
and
coming. I've
today will
got
be more.
Well, so in the next 2 weeks, I'll be putting out the May version. I'm only doing one a month now because what's happening is
Mm.
you get these podcasts, they're really, really popular, you're doing well, and then other things happen. Like you have, like for me, I have to start mowing the lawn. That takes a lot of my time, but my daughter's helping. But May is National Mental Health Month, and for May,
I didn't know that.
we're putting out a podcast on burnout for mental health,
Yeah,
and I have one person who's going to interview who is on the sponsor side, and then I have one person who's a
on
PI
burnout.
on burnout.
Wow.
So we've got the full skit, just any kind of a teaser for anyone interested. Rob Goldman is one of my community voice members.
Wow, Robert
So yeah,
Goldman.
Robert
I'm
Goldman,
trying to
he's
get him on a panel soon. That guy is invaluable to our industry
mhm.
from the sponsor side. Wow.
I I am so very he's on my board of advisors for
I
CRP,
know. I
and
know.
he has been just absolutely amazing. He's totally supportive. I posted something today about how I'm very thankful for the network who's supported me to the point where I can kind of follow my dreams. And Robert's in that group, man. He's a big part of what CRPN is doing right now, and I really appreciate his support.
Doing big things, man.
Yep.
And we're gonna get Brad on in a little bit. He's on a site selection call. I think it might be the same study, Brad. We can't talk about it on air, but I think I know which one you're talking about. And
Hmm.
actually, let's get into real quick. Like this is going to be the ultimate tech stack for sites episode. So site centric. Okay, we don't really care what CROs like and what sponsors like for themselves. Like that's fine. We're site owners. We're going to talk about what sites like. And from my experiences, like I used to be really like anti tech until really it was like right after COVID. And
Hmm.
I don't know why. I feel like the tools got better after COVID. Like I think COVID uh, spurred on this movement of like, hey, let's really make like site centric tools. Because
Hmm.
prior to COVID, there were tech, but it was all like CRO focused and what can help the CROs manage sites better. And I don't know, they felt like a little stifling tech, to be honest with you. Like I
Hmm.
remember the first e-source we were supposed to use. I can't remember the vendor even if I wanted to. It was a sponsor and CRO forced us to use it. This was 2016. We
Wow.
hated it. We almost like didn't want to do the study, and they would record your every movement, and it was for a schizophrenia study, so they would record like the rating scales, and every second was time stamped, so you didn't have any room for like even going to the bathroom, like to avoid like a protocol deviation. You're like,
Wow.
no, no, I have to do this. Like the pans right now, I have to do the positive and negative symptoms. Like, let's get the patient in here. Patient's in the middle of eating a sandwich. Hey, sorry, man. Like, let's do this while you're eating. Like, let's go. Terrible. Now they're
Little,
site
yeah,
focused.
little extreme on that level. We've had the same thing. Hey, if you want to do this trial, you have to do this tech. It's an e-pro, it's a diary, it's some electronic, it's some wearable. You have to do this, and then sites can be
Yeah.
like, yeah, but do we though? I mean, if you read the contract, I mean, I get it. This is a preferred whatever, but do you really, can you legally tell us that we have to do something to do our work as subcontractors? And it's like, no, you collect data,
Right.
you perform services, and then it's like, okay, well, we're just not going to select you. Then we'll talk to
Yeah.
the sites that do what we ask them to do. It's like, oh, okay, well, doesn't meet our quality standards, so see you next time. I'll go on to the next sponsor. So,
Yeah. I mean, I can see both sides because I dabble a bit in the CRO worlds, like just extremely small, like market share. We do IITs, investigator initiated trials,
mhm.
for appropriate projects, mainly to give our CRA Academy students like a good internship.
Yep,
Which you're part of CRC Academy internship right now.
I
You
am,
said
and
Monica's giving you some crazy homework.
oh my gosh. So I thought, okay, CRC Academy. I've made source before, right? I've created source, I've QA'd source. And then Monica's like, okay, your homework is to make this source. Here's the protocol. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Monica. I mean, like, here I'm thinking, like, okay, I could do this. And then I read the protocol, I'm like, you chose a heck of a protocol, Monica. uh, I mean,
Man,
I can get it done, but for anyone who's never done it, I mean, she's probably gonna get some very frantic people in a week emailing her saying, "What do I do? How do I do this?" Questions. It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's
Does she have
pretty.
you broken up in teams?
No, I think it's just a main cohort, not
Okay.
not
Oh,
a
okay,
huge
okay.
cohort.
I see. I see.
But
Yeah, she goes intense on the CRC Academy, and then in the CRA internship, we try to get like these IITs where the students will do like monitoring on a real study. But
mm-hmm,
I was gonna say, like in my role as a CRO, because I'm so passionate about some of these tech companies that we're gonna discuss today,
mm-hmm,
uh, I found myself pushing it on sites too. Like
yeah,
as a CRO, like I tell the sponsor, hey, I already know what's gonna make the trial more efficient, and so we're just gonna convince the sites to use this.
yeah,
Luckily, it's like few sites at a time. It's 1 to 3 sites usually is what we've
mm-hmm,
dealt with, so it's a relatively easy-ish sell.
mm-hmm,
But I caught myself doing what I'm criticizing sponsors and CROs of doing too, which is pushing their version of what works for
yep,
them on them. And
yep.
I can see it. I mean, I get it, guys. This is not anti CRO and sponsor rant. Like,
No,
I get it.
and in their defense, what the reason why they're probably doing that is they see it working elsewhere.
Right.
And they're
Right.
like, hey, this worked for this site, this works for our entire study, we need to do it here too. And the sites, they may not have that visibility, so they're like, that doesn't work at our site. That's
Yeah.
and this is why.
It's important to keep it in mind because it's funny how I criticize sponsors of doing that. And then the next day, I'm like, hey, you guys got to use Creo. Like, what's going on? Why are you not using Creo? And by the way, that's one of our, maybe we start with that. Creo
Hmm.
is the first tech stack, I think. Like, there's a few eSource, eReg vendors. Creo is not free. The other two that I'm going to mention are free. Creo is also a sponsor,
Hmm.
but they're a sponsor because I like it, and that's why I'm happy promoting it. I've been using it since 2016, but with UMA clinical trials since 2021, so almost 2 years now. Um, I can't imagine life without it. Like, and my coordinators don't know life without it at UMA clinical trials. All they know is eSource, eReg. They don't know paper source. They know a few paper scales, like for derm, some scales that the PI still circles on a paper and we upload to Creo, or in Psych, there's still some paper scales, but like checking vitals, writing a progress note, They don't know. Back
Hmm.
in the day, you used to write those
Back
things
in the old
down.
days. Yep.
Back in my day, we walked to school in the snow.
Yep. So I have an interesting perspective on the CTMS side because I talk to so many sites.
Mhm.
And it seems like there's just this massive circulation of sites who they'll go Creo and then they'll go to RTC TMS. And then they'll go back to Creo or they'll go back to RTC TMS. And there's this giant fluidity between them.
But what? So what's RT real time?
Real time. Yeah.
Why do they? Because Creo has the CTMS built in. So why do they
Yep.
not do that?
Well, no. So, Creo is its own regulatory e-source suite,
Yeah, yeah, everything.
CTMS. So is real time. So real
I
time does the
see. I
same
see.
thing. They've got the financial, they both have their products and they both have their pluses and minuses.
I
I'm
see.
still, I'm not sure which one, because the thing is, I call them pros and cons for each. Uh, they're becoming very similar across all the sites. Like one site is like, I don't like this part of Creo, so I
Mm,
want to go to real time. And they'll go to real time. And they're like, oh, I really like these parts of real time, but I miss parts of Creo. So then the sites have to make the decision on what's most important to them. And then
I
they end
see.
up settling on one or the other.
I see. In fairness to real time, I've never played with it. I know sites that use it.
Hmm.
I mean, for all I know, if I were using them since 2016, they might be sponsoring this podcast in another universe, but they're not. Like that's how it worked out. I just got really used to it. On the Creo side, I feel like it is super site friendly and
Hmm.
gives the site a lot of freedom
Yeah.
while keeping within the framework of Alcoac and GCP best
Hmm.
practices. They do their part too, to where if you put something and you e-sign it in the EISF or in the e-source somewhere, you can't just delete things. There's an audit
Hmm.
trail, but there are processes you can go through that, if you put something in the wrong folder, for example, which happened to me a lot early on, there's forms that you can request them to move it, but it's all like up to par. It's all regulated and
Hmm.
it'll pass an
Totally
audit.
compliant, fully
Hmm.
compliant. I
Hmm.
mean, big. This is an interesting episode because some of these people are sponsoring Save Our Sites,
Hmm.
and it's interesting how the directions that each of their organizations are going, the strengths and weaknesses. It's really hard, and this is a sponsor. Oh,
Angel,
sorry,
I think
I didn't even.
he's a CRO, but he says I have one site that uses Creo. I love it. I wish others use it too. But
Hmm.
what were you
Yeah,
saying? There?
I was just saying that I know that Creo is really good at site administrative permissions. Like I'm sure if Angel, if he's a CRA, he's really digging it because you have monitor privileges for X amount of time. You can do
Yes.
this, you can do that. It's awesome. I believe real time has something that's very similar. It's interesting because you have Creo and you use Creo. I know Brad. I think he's real time.
Yeah, Brad.
So
When Brad comes on, I believe he's real time also.
uh-huh.
I wonder if Brad's one. He has enough studies to where he can like beta test.
Yeah,
Um,
probably could.
but that maybe would be expensive. Well, maybe not actually, because you only pay with Creo. You pay for like the studies you actually use, so you
Mm-hmm.
can have a study where you don't use Creo. I'd be curious to see Brad. Brad's like a high volume studies. I'm only like at 10. Maybe I'll be at 12 in
Mm-hmm.
3 months, but still like on the small, getting into the medium sized site space soon.
So the one thing I did ask both CTMS platforms, and I didn't quite enjoy the answer, was I was like, how in the world is there any way you could possibly integrate into QuickBooks? Right? Can we do a QuickBooks?
Yeah, yeah.
And neither of the software platforms are like, yeah, we don't really do QuickBooks, but we offer all this stuff inside of our CTMS software. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, but you're not an accountability platform. You don't have all these reports. It's not like you can say, here, accountant, log into my Creo and do my books for the taxes. There's a
Right,
reason. Yeah.
right,
So, I mean, QuickBooks had, I mean, of course, you don't expect a CTMS software to be QuickBooks. That's just not it. But
right.
it would be nice because I guess that's the question is the answers that I got from everyone was not many sites use QuickBooks.
I use QuickBooks.
I use QuickBooks. Most of my sites
There's
use QuickBooks.
two for two right
So
there.
if you're a small business you're going to use QuickBooks. That's like the accounting standard because you have to speak the language of business to your accountants for
Yeah.
taxes. Um,
I think the real issue is
so
QuickBooks is on a different level. I mean,
yeah.
way different level, and
Oh yeah.
they're
Yeah.
probably gonna do a pay to play. Like, hey,
Hey
you want
Brad,
access to your Brad
What's up,
Hightower,
guys?
man.
how's it
Brad
going?
Hightower. Brad, your post. By the way, welcome to episode 700. The
700.
I made it to
Dang.
Nice.
700. I didn't know till yesterday. I
Yeah.
uploaded 699, but 700, man. But your post inspired this a
Impressive.
few weeks ago. I don't even know if you remember. You said, "What's the ultimate tech stack for sites?"
Mm.
And I was thinking. I don't know if I commented, but I was thinking even until this morning. And now that we've got I got three sponsors: Creo and Nato and Versatile that I love. I think those are. We're going to talk about those, but I'm sure you have your favorites, and Dr. Fox has his. You use real time, right, for your eSource and
I
eReg?
do. I do
Nice.
use real time. We actually don't use their eSource, or we haven't to this point. It's really just been for mostly the, internal tracking and financial tracking and
Mhm.
managing visits and things like that. So
Mm.
we've not used their eSource at this point.
Mhm.
We
Do you
did use
use eSource?
Creos a little bit in the past, but yeah, it's really been mostly sort of the subject tracking and the financials.
Wow.
Yep. And
Okay.
I do have to say shout out to Rick Greenfield. He's the reason for my background. So we're talking about real time, and uh, he did that for me. So that's
We were talking about QuickBooks because maybe
yeah.
that should be next. That's my ultimate tech stack. Like so far, it's Creo for eSource, eReg, CTMS, but I do use QuickBooks as well for reasons you mentioned. Like I have investors, my PI, a nurse practitioner. Those are my business partners. They don't really know what's going on with the business, so I every quarter I send them a P&L. I
Mhm.
They're not going to really log into Creo and mess around with it to figure out how to use. Like there's a learning curve no matter which of these tech things we talk about. There's a learning curve to using them.
Mhm.
So QuickBooks, I just export P&L, boom, few seconds, here you go, everyone's happy. And we were talking about why it would be really cool to have these things integrate into QuickBooks, but QuickBooks is not going to just allow them to do that. They're like
Mhm.
publicly traded. They're not going to let
Yeah.
some startups do that,
No, you'll have to get
unfortunately.
pretty big. Have to get big for QuickBooks. I mean, they do offer integrations. They integrate with all kinds of things, but I'll bet you it'd be really expensive for the CTMS platforms to do that. We'd have to have some pretty large amounts of money going into that, which means you're going to have a lot of demand and a lot of margin.
Mm.
So,
How do you guys invoice then? Like for your sites, like invoiceable?
We use real time, and that's where I
yep.
actually, again, I've used both. I started on real time, and then I moved to Creo, and then I moved back to real time. And
You were like what Dr. Fox was saying, the flip flopper back and
Yep.
forth.
yeah, and and that's really not a shot at either one. I mean, I think they're
Yeah.
both good. They also both have their weaknesses as well. I've found for us real time. It does help us keep up with our invoicing and the way that it's structured a little bit more. It's a little bit more work, but it's a little bit more organized, I think, for us. So
I see.
we actually invoice right out of real time, which sends an automated email from real time. It tracks. You've got a list of all your
Mhm.
invoices, whether they've been opened or not by
Ah.
the
Yep.
person who you've sent them to.
Very like
You
that's what
can
QuickBooks does.
yeah. So
What
you
do
can
you
track
see?
it.
What do you see most of the time? Unopened?
Yeah, I'm checking them way too often. Refresh.
Yep.
Have they opened it
Refresh.
yet?
Yeah. Have they viewed it yet?
Right.
So,
So
yeah,
no,
and
that's worked well for us,
I
rather than
see.
exporting out and trying to do something in QuickBooks. I mean,
I
you
think
need
that
QuickBooks to run the business as a whole, but I think all of your study related stuff stays in our CTMS.
so Brad, what do you input into QuickBooks from real time? Like what information can you pull out? Just like some kind of a quarterly entry for revenue or what I mean, just to prevent you from having to totally re-enter things into a different system, how do you consolidate what you do and add that to QuickBooks so that you can have an accurate P&L?
Yeah, not very well, to be perfectly honest. This is where I probably need to start hiring people to manage this stuff for me. But we can run those reports out of real time and on whatever
Mhm.
basis you like, and reconcile. But really, since it's connected to my bank account, and I'm getting real time information from QuickBooks, what I've been paid and what's in and out. But
Yeah.
otherwise you can pull a report from real time and just enter, you can track your expenses and payables, and then also track, what you've been paid or what you need to be paid. So frankly, again, it's I'm not going to pretend like I'm a financial expert when it comes to that. I'm a guy who's, like you guys,
Yeah.
trying to wear a lot of hats. So it's sort of my own, I think, good enough, and I don't have to answer to any investors. It's just a single member LLC, so it's a little bit, I guess, simpler in those terms.
I just found a really cool article from construction workers who build houses talking about how you could utilize QuickBooks to monitor retainage and withholding, which
Shoot.
is really nice for your chart of accounts. So being able to know every dollar, every penny that you're owed versus when you should have been paid is really important for a site owner.
Maybe Intuit's watching this and seeing Amazon getting into research and Walgreens and
Mm-hmm.
McDonald's. I think I'm
It's
joking about McDonald's, but maybe they get into it and say, "Hey, we're
yeah.
gonna start doing this. What is
You mean
this?
you mean the MIC consent?
The MIC consent? Yeah, the minute clinics type of model.
So yeah. But
Okay, so
I think
eSource.
that Creo is owning eSource. Creo is becoming known for the eSource group right now.
Mhm.
They're kind of like, I think that's kind of where they put their ducks in a row.
That's my tech stack. And like I said, in
Yeah.
fairness to real time, I've never used it. And in another world, they might be sponsoring this episode. But people like Brad use it and love it. So I mean, that's like everyone has a different tech stack.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll move on to one that I know
Yep.
myself and Brad really like and just started using is Inato. That's another sponsor. I think they sponsor both, right? Your show, and
Yeah, not
mine.
not quite yet. No formal
Oh,
announcement
okay,
yet,
okay,
but yeah,
okay.
but yeah, that is coming.
Cat's
I
out the
actually
bag.
I just got off the phone. Just got off the phone with someone from Minato about a new study opportunity.
I
So
think we have that same study. When you texted me, I think I have. Well, I'll talk to you later, but
okay,
I think every site should have this. Like, it's free, it's
Mm-hmm.
risk free. You build a profile, so I guess your risk is the time it takes to set up your site profile. But that's it. Then you can start saying yes or no to study opportunities, and yeah, they might be like a little on the difficult side right now, but they're just starting out, and why
and
not
that's
be
kind
an
of where
early
I
adopter?
am. Yeah, some of the sort of early criticism is, people are like, well, I haven't gotten any studies from them, or
Mhm.
it's still a little bit of a convoluted process, and maybe so. It seems like they've already done a lot of streamlining, and they're doing, frankly, even if you don't get a study through them, I feel like they're still doing you a favor as a site, because they're being pretty damn precise in making
Mm-hmm.
sure this is a good fit for you.
Yeah.
Because I can't tell you, we still take on studies that I'm like 3 months later, I'm like, crap, I just wish we hadn't have even taken this study on. I
Mm-hmm.
wish we hadn't have done this. I
Yeah,
wish I had known more. I wish somebody had taken that time and level of detail, so we could have made a better decision and not wasted everybody's time. So I think it is improving. And then to your point, I mean, sites need this sort of BD, solutions to help them, because let's face it, I mean, it's the way studies come through. It's just a chaotic mess,
right.
generally.
Yep. I I talked with the Inato group at SCRS. That's one of the first free things that CRPN offers sites is just network opportunities, trial opportunities. I'm really glad that companies are stepping up and offering this for free to sites. It's one of the barriers that we can bring down. I talked with Inato about partnering with them with CRPN, so we could try CRPN's partnering with Inato so we can get our sites really good trials, trying to get more exposure to the whole free opportunity dynamic.
Yeah, and they'll even jump on biz dev calls with you, like to
Yep.
prepare you. So they'll do
Yep.
like a pre-site selection visit Zoom with you. I had one derm one, and I'm working on a cardiovascular disease one with them. That might This is probably the same one.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's the same one.
My PI likes that one. He thinks like the premise. We can't get in details, but he thinks that, like,
Yeah.
it's interesting, and so that's, I think, Monday I have that same call that you had.
Nice.
Um, but in not to me, it's a no brainer, guys. And
Mm-hmm.
what's the worst that could happen? You sign up, you make your site profile, and then you say no to every study. Okay, well, maybe next year you'll say yes to one that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So to me, no brainer in NATO. And I think the studies will get better on there. And like as sponsors get comfortable with going to a provider like that for feasibility, they're going to start opening it up. Just like when you're a site, like the first studies you're going to get are like crappy studies. Like, I remember my first at UMA clinical trials, terrible studies, but then they get better over time.
Mhm.
And then you can start getting pickier as a site. So in
Well, they have to,
NATO,
they have to know your profile. It's not like they know you immediately. It's all a lot of and trust me, from someone who tries to get their sites trials, sometimes a site's like, yeah, I'll take everything, and then you send them everything, and they're like, I don't want that, I don't want that, I don't want that, and it's like, okay, so it's like we have to start learning exactly. Sometimes the sites don't even know what they want until
man, our
they're,
client, we
you
have
know,
like 80 something sites that we work for on the side, like as a small paid. We're not a tech company, so it's not a tech stack, but let us know if you're interested. DSCS will help you out
mhm.
with everything. We get clients, especially newer ones. They say, hey, you know what? I want easy studies, Dan. Give me easy studies. I tell them,
It's that
dude,
oxymoron right
there's
there.
no such thing. Like, have you? When's the last time you had an easy study that actually paid decent?
Yeah, they're few and far between, but that's
I
kind of that's the game we play. I feel like is like you take 10 grinding dogs of study until you like get that one that's quote unquote easy. Easy is a very relative
Yeah.
term. We do
Yeah.
have studies that pay decent and are easier to enroll, but they're like blood draw studies. But that means we have to do insane volume, which means it's a lot of
Yep.
stress on the coordinators to keep
Yep.
data entered in a timely. So there's no easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and insane amounts of doc and source, and
Yeah.
I, so I think what happens is the easy studies don't have to look for sites. There's easy studies out there, but
That's
they're
right.
already awarded and they go so fast that they're not even on like an auto's radar.
Right.
I talked to one CRO. They kept sending me all of these trials, and it's like, can't you just give me a trial that's reasonable? Because unfortunately, by the time they get these studies and they have to find sites, these are like rescue studies where the
Yeah.
protocol is insane and there's some kind of a crazy washout period that the patient suffers from, and it's just really really hard to find sites or patients to do these trials, which unfortunately that's why they need help finding sites.
Yeah. And easy's relative, like Brad was saying. Like
Mm-hmm.
what might be easy for me was impossible for someone else, and vice versa, based on the infrastructure you have
Mm-hmm.
and the connections you have um, in your community. So yeah, innato.com, no brainer to me. Ultimate tech stack. Just grow with them. Get a study here. Even if you get one extra study a year, it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
If you heard about it here, so in NATO. Next
So
one.
yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
go ahead, Brett.
One more note. I mean, as you guys know too, I mean, that one study that maybe you get in a year can lead to insane opportunities
Yep.
right down the road.
Yep.
Oh man.
That's the
Yep.
sort of like opportunity, unforeseen opportunity sometimes that yeah,
You
maybe it
opened
took
up a
forever
new
to get one.
topic.
Well,
You
you opened
opened
up,
a new topic, man.
so you get a whole Pandora's box just by getting that one study and doing well. So
I told my Jaime Valles, who's my NP business partner, he's been running this show with me, this circus at times slash show for 2 years. We've had like 10 studies or so. We've only made real money off of two. And that is not almost, that is the 80-20
yeah,
principle right there.
yeah,
Yep. Yep.
20% of your studies will give you 80% of your profits.
Yep.
But then you got to deal with the other ones just because we're in the shit eating business. Like
yeah.
that's what we got to do, right?
Yep.
And even if those other studies, let's say they're not that profitable, but if you're helping out one patient, it's worth it to that one patient.
Yep.
That patient doesn't think about your profits. That patient's like, hey, I'm glad you have this study. And we do have studies where we only have one or two randomized patients.
Yep.
Yeah.
80
I,
Yeah,
20, man.
that's the name of the game. I think the more it's interesting to hear that sort of validated as you talk to more site owners, because I've always thought like maybe I'm doing this wrong, right? But maybe I need to be like all my studies aren't kick ass. Most of them aren't. Most of them are very hard. But you're right. It is still. I think it's still worth it.
It's worth it even to that one patient, man. Like it's just worth it. And it's worth it to that sponsor too. Even one randomized patient that completes, That's data. Like to them, it's worth it to do your startups and all that stuff just from that one
Yep.
completed patient. Um, Thomas says, given the resources your site utilizes and seem to appreciate, do you have a preference on resources provided by a CRO that you would utilize? Yes. Okay. I was going to go to another tech stack for sites, but I got one that you, as a site, you cannot pick. They don't work with sites, but you can request. Okay. You can request your sponsor, 1N Health. I don't know if you guys
Yep.
were lucky enough to be a part
Steve
of.
Wimmer. Steve Wimmer, man.
Man, I am so impressed. I was so
Yes,
skeptical going
please.
into it. I was so skeptical, and it saved one of our study. Right now, we just randomized someone yesterday because of that.
Yep.
Like huge improved employee morale. That patients in like basically due to 1N Health excellent system. Like the leads are great. I don't know if it's because of Yuma. Brad, do you guys have you guys used this on any
We've
study?
not, but we do. I'm on their like site advisory board, so I've had some opportunities to play around and even potentially utilize it from the site side, which I find really compelling. That
I
because to your point,
wish. I
generally they
wish.
don't. Generally, we don't get to like pick or use whatever we want to use. It's just kind of we get to sit there and get you know referrals lobbed over the fence at us, and
Mhm.
so. I have experience with their system, but I've not used it as part of a trial yet.
Man, like the best I've ever used by far. The central recruitment, it's like night and day. Like,
Yep.
and I was so skeptical going into it. Me and my coordinator had to do their training call because the sponsor said, "Hey, we're using 1N Health. I never heard of them." We did the thing. We're like, "Okay." I told my coordinator, "Watch, you're not going to get like very many referrals." From day one, we started getting a bunch of leads. The leads
Mhm.
actually answer. First, you can text them at through the platform. Then they say, "Okay, call me." Then they actually qualify,
Hey,
guys.
Steve's here. Hey, Steve.
They qualify. What a
Yep.
concept. Patients qualify. Patients come. Half of them come in, which is huge. It sounds horrible if you're not familiar with our industry, but 50% from a ad to show up is like unheard of.
Right.
We
Yep.
can't do this when we run ads on our own in the newspaper here. So they come in, they get randomized. Another one's going to get randomized. Steve, you saved one of my studies, man. So I've been recommending 1N Health to other studies like that are behind on enrollment. Let's see if they listen to me or not. But um,
Well, and
excellent tech stack.
that is again, I think, sort of underappreciated. Is I mean, more people are paying attention to what we're saying as sites, and I think it's sort of the onus on us, in a little, at least in some ways, to say like, "Hey, man, this is who we like, and this is what works." So I appreciate Thomas Peterson. I mean, asking the question because I
Mhm.
think,
Yeah. What do you guys like? What happens? What
yeah, at
works?
least people are listening.
Mhm.
So I like
Thomas,
that.
I got a theory at the end, man, and I want to get Dr. Fox and Brad's take, but um, let's move on to the next one. They're a
Well, so
sponsor as well.
we
Oh, go
should
ahead, Dr.
we should
Fox.
at least give people choices. I know One in Health is awesome, but uh, I would really keep an eye on Sieve with Artie. Brad.
Never heard of.
Well, so
Never heard
that's
So
of.
and that's almost a different
it's
category, I think,
yeah,
of tech stack when you're talking, because you're talking about
patient
EMR.
ID. Yeah,
Yeah,
your
yeah. Well,
EMR
and
scrubbers.
I guess to your point, without going to, I mean, they're kind of agnostic. They have different ways, but I know EMR scrubbing or EMR data abstraction, whatever you want to call it, is certainly a big uh,
Mm-hmm.
part of what Sieve does.
What? How do you spell this, Steve?
SEIVE. It's
Okay.
Artie and the team.
Huh. Okay. I gotta check it out. Um, maybe that'll be a tech stack also.
Oh,
In the
So
you
future.
I do
yeah.
think, this is a complicated issue in my mind, and that we could probably do a whole different thing about it, because we work with different physicians, different practices. They all have different EMRs. Some are big, some are small. Some will give us access, some will give us restricted access. So getting the ability to, you know, integrate with some sort of AI that will help search, unstructured data is way easier said than done. I know there's
Mhm.
companies out there doing it, and it does work. It does help narrow that funnel for us. And even now, as much as I hate to say it, the best way to find patients is still to look from week to week who's coming into the clinic
Yep.
and
Yep.
be there when that patient's there, rather
Yep.
than make a cold call,
Yeah.
to somebody. Now,
That's the AI right there.
That's like hardwire right there. It's awesome.
so you can at least
yeah.
you can at least get a little bit of a head start and not have to do so much manual sifting if you can get a query and then see
Mhm.
who's coming in, based on a timeline. So I think that's important, but again, I still think it's a little easier said than done for a lot of sites.
But you
Well,
know
Brad, I
what?
don't know. Yeah. I
I'm
don't know
glad
if
you
you've
guys brought
talked to
that up.
Artie recently, but we should bring her on to talk about Steve's latest. She just talked to me last week, I think, and they've got some cool things going on for any private site. Cool things that help you manage your
Wow.
database and run your own database scrubbing within your site. So, uh, really, I would recommend having a conversation with her if you don't know who she is.
I don't, and yeah, for sure. And thank you for bringing up this aspect before we moved on, because I just, as good as I just said, 1N Health is. Here's the catch, okay? This patient we randomized the other day, they're actually a patient of our clinic, and
Wow.
we didn't find them ourselves. I had this conversation with my PI, and actually several of their leads that look good on paper that we're scheduling are patients of the clinic. And then our PI is like, why are they not hearing about it from us? I said, good freaking question, man. Like, you've got 10,000 patients in this EMR. We're only 3 people, and we got blood draws and all kinds of stuff. Monitors asking for queries. I don't know. And I said, I left it at, I know there's AI companies out there that can do this for us. So maybe that's next for me.
Oh, Stephanie's on. There's our Creo rep. Hey,
Stephanie,
Stephanie.
we gave Creo like a huge shout out at the
Yep.
beginning. Love it. Okay, the next one, Versa Trial,
Ah,
guys.
yes.
Right, huge fan. Another sponsor. Mike just left here. Yuma Mike, the founder, CEO, or study organization. I was extremely skeptical. I was skeptical of all this stuff, man. I'm jaded as hell. Right, all this. I don't want any tech. I'm like Chris, Excel and Word, but times evolve, things get better, you learn like, hey, this tools actually help. Versatrial, when you get study, when I was the only coordinator, all the portals were in my head. Like,
Mhm.
okay, the IRB's this, the freaking IRT is this, the so there's like 10. When you have like 1 or 2 studies, 3 studies, you can keep it in your head. When you get like 4 or 5, you put it in Evernote, but then Evernote gets like annoying. But then 6 to 10, 6 or more, you're like, what the hell? How am I gonna remember all this stuff? Let alone my passwords. Let
Mhm.
alone password. Versatrail makes it easy for you,
Mhm.
right? And it's team. That's another thing. That's a big aspect of this. Me putting things in Evernote is for myself.
Mhm.
And I'm not gonna give my CRC my Evernote password because I got my tax returns in there. I got all kinds of crap. I got my alarm from my home in there. Probably not a good idea. Versatrail's teamwork. So if we build a study box and we start populating it, my coordinators, the rest of the team gets to benefit from that, and we collaborate. It's truly organized teamwork
Yep.
with a click of
Well,
a button. It's amazing. I love this
it
company.
is, and it's something that's one of I love things like this because it's not complicated. It's just
Mhm.
incredibly simple. The concept is incredibly simple, but for especially teams like us, and I know a lot of others out there, we're pretty modular. Like, people are cross trained on different studies. You may not be working on a study all the time, but you may need to step in to help. Well, challenging that is because, well, who's the CRA now? Well, wait a minute, which ERT system or which IRT system are we using? So to be able to have that across teams in a centralized place is, again, doesn't sound maybe like that big of a deal, but it's a really big
It's
deal.
huge. It's huge. So May 2022, I was in Austin, Texas for SCRS Oncology. That was one of my first in-person conferences. I was going around meeting people, doing all of this. And over there, like not even in the vendor booth or the vendor area, the booth area, but over like just one of the tables where people eat is this guy with a laptop. And I go up to him, I talk to him, and he goes, "Hey, how's it going? My name's Mike. You want to talk about this? I can show you a demo on my computer." Versatrial. He had opened it like 2 weeks ago, and I got
Wow.
to talk to him at SCRS, and then SCRS Global Summit came in. It was
Wait,
like,
so you just saw a random dude with a laptop and go talk to him?
yeah,
You're
ran
freaking
dude with a
social.
laptop, man.
You're social as hell,
Yeah,
Dr.
That's
Fox.
insane. That's insanity.
yeah, he didn't even have a card. He didn't even have a card. It was like literally a guy with a laptop saying, "I quit my job. I just had a baby, and we just bought a new house, and now I started this company." I'm like, "Oh shit, man, you're really impressive. So I'd like to talk to you." So I came back with Versatrial. Unfortunately, my site was not interested. We had a really crazy IT department that literally blocked Google Meets, much less anything else. So that didn't work. But I've been watching him. But I came in SCRS like 6 months later, and he's got a freaking booth. And now he's growing, and now he's on stage, and he's traveling, and he's like this superstar. And I'm like, man, I'm glad I should have gotten your signature before you were famous. But I agree. He's really creating an image for himself. He's selected some good people on his team. I don't know if you've seen any of the Versatrial memes or marketers that are out there, but they do a good job.
Mm-hmm.
In the spirit of due diligence, just so that everyone, so there is another opportunity out there that Mike is there's another person doing something similar. It's Stephanie Abbott and her group. She has something called Lido. Lido kind of does what Versatrial does. They're taking a little bit of a different direction. The difference is Stephanie Abbott is a PI. So now you've got a PI who's developing the software, which a lot of people are liking in the network. So you've got Versatrial and you've got Lido. So it's a matter of talking to both of the groups and seeing which ones you like best.
I like that there's options. I mean, I've become a fan. Like if I like it early, I'm the type of guy not to change.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm with Creo and Nato so far. There's no reason to change. And the Versatrial, it's already on my freaking Chrome and all my CRC's Chrome.
Yep.
We ain't changing that. I mean, this lady, but we need to get her on too. Like the PI, respect, man. If you're a PI doing stuff like this, I got nothing but respect for you.
Yeah,
Brad, you've interviewed Stephanie, right?
I have. It's been a while, and maybe it was even before Lido was really quite up and going, and I've heard of it since. But I mean, to Dan's point, I mean, I love that there are options. I mean, I think what you're probably seeing a theme, and that a lot of the people we like are the people who are spending the time to come on site and talk to the sites and get a real intimate, no bullshit opinion from sites and willing to take it. Now, obviously, she's a PI. She knows what's up. But there's a lot of these other companies make a lot of presumptions. So I think you're probably seeing a trend in the stuff that we talk about. So if you're a vendor, you might want to go talk to sites.
I got respect, especially PI. Brad, speaking of getting in the trenches, like Mike just came to Yuma, spent 2 days with me, stayed in a crappy ass motel. I felt so bad for him, man. I was scared when I went to pick him up. I'm like, why are you staying here? Of all places, man. Like, my wife and I were like, felt so bad. We're like, hey, you should have stayed at the house. But respect. These guys are out there grinding. When's the last time a CRO came to your site, not for a study, just to like visit and see how things go?
Yeah, they're not doing that. They can't build that.
Even
they
a
can't
small
build
one.
that. They can't build that back to a sponsor.
It's not a billable hour.
It's not. It's not, but it's not for Versatrial either. And Creo's done the same thing. I'm sure Nato rolls like that too.
Proof Pilot came out, and I saw those guys.
Pilot. There's so many like tech companies. I'm actually excited. And are there any other tech companies you missed before we get to like my interesting conclusion that you guys probably know?
We've got to jump on E-Reg. I know what the E-Reg answers are, but
Viva.
Yeah,
Viva. Site Vault. I got the sweater right here. Site Vault. We use Site Vault too. So we have Creo and Site Vault. I've been hacking it because Creo's not free. So I've been using Viva pre-study, right? Like before we're actually awarded, but there's a bunch of documents.
But you don't want to necessarily build it all the way out.
Yeah, and you don't want to get a bill from Creo yet.
Right.
Shout out to Ray, they're on it, but like, you want to wait till you're awarded and actually sign the contract, not just say you have a SIV. I know you guys made posts about this. SIV scheduled, no contract signed yet. Oh, sorry guys, we're canceling the study.
Yep. Huge. It's huge. So I have to I love Bree. I love the Viva team, but I'm really digging clinically. I don't know if you've talked to Angel in the
Mhm.
group, but really recommend shopping around
Free?
clinically. No, not free, but
Mm,
you can see the difference. You definitely get what you pay
really?
for there. Yeah.
Man, you guys taught me 3 new things: Lido, Siva, and clinically.
Yep. I talk highly. Well, Angel gave me you can't see it. I have a mug with clinically on it, but um, no. So Henry is the founder of Clinically. He's on my CRP and advisory board. I
Wow.
really appreciate what Clinically does for our sites, especially the startups. Like if they will literally just talk to someone, be like, okay, we get it. Your startup, you're waiting on money. Let's work things out. They will do. I'm really impressed, and a lot of my sites are impressed. So if you want to get into a pay option for regulatory, if you want to try to get a little more bells and whistles or a little more flexibility, definitely recommend talking to Clinically.
Thanks for that. I mean, anyone that you respect for sure, like automatically goes in that category in my head, and happy to get them on the podcast and learn more. I like Brad said, that there's options.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and eReg, there's a ton of options. I mean, it's a really saturated field. I mean, Real Time's got their own. Creo's got their own.
Creo's got their own, yeah.
Viva,
Florence is
Clinically,
big.
Florence.
Florence, man. So
It's
I'm gonna have
yeah.
my first experience with Florence because the sponsor's pushing it on me, and
Is
I
it like
told them, hey, I want
yeah,
Creo. They're like, no, you have to use
yeah,
Florence.
yep,
So we're using Viva for that EREG for that study because we're not gonna pay for Creo if they're making
yeah,
us use something else. So I'm using Viva for like those situations as well, and I'm
yep.
happy it's free for stuff like that too.
Wasn't it a push for IQVIA? IQVIA and Florence are doing their thing.
I
I
don't
think
know,
I
man.
think Florence partnered with IQVIA. That was
Really?
the big
Oh, well, that would
announcement.
make sense. No, this is a very small sponsor, no CRO.
Interesting.
Yeah, let's see how it goes. um, anything else we missed before we get to this? Like, I want to get your guys' take on this. You probably have the same thoughts too, but
Don't forget your slope IOs.
slow
Your
Rust Felix,
yep,
man, where are you at,
yep,
Rust? Oh my, it's been a while since I've talked to you.
yep.
Still got the
Matt
beard?
Matt Smith and the team over at Slope. I mean, there's so many
Do you guys
tech
use Slope,
options. Nope, not yet.
Brad?
Yeah, we've been the same. I
On my
haven't.
way.
I have access. It's like it's like everything else. I think the first step is like the hardest, just getting everything uploaded in there.
Yeah,
I talked to them before. If we get like a nice scan system going, man, I'm there today. Let's do it. Scan
Mhm.
stuff in and out. It's hard to ask your coordinators to punch in and out one
yeah.
extra thing in a new system, and it's challenging.
That's the other thing, man. That we can talk. Site owners can talk all this, and we all get our hands dirty, all three of us. But like, you coordinators need to also want to use this stuff. It's not just
Mhm.
like you think it's cool. Like,
Yep.
your coordinator need to be willing to do it, and then so that's a huge element as well. I think Versatrial does that really well with making life easy for
Mhm.
coordinators, and Creo as well.
I
Okay,
think
so
that would
slope.
Yep, that would be the challenge is maybe choose all of the topics that could help site on a tech level and then just do a due diligence, pick 3 options for each one, explore them all, pros and cons, just no bias, just boom, boom, boom. I think it'd be really helpful. That maybe that's something we ought to work on for SOS. That would be really cool to have a conversation.
So speaking of SOS and site networks and loose alliances of other loose alliances of site networks, right? So I mean, ultimately, you're getting hundreds of sites, kind of best of both worlds. They're aligned, but they're all independent. Like DSC, we have 85 in our site network. Brad's got like entire Oklahoma City, like the whole
Brad owns
hospital
the
system.
state.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's like he's governor soon, 2028. Um, you with CRPN,
Yep, I
that's just
just
three
got
of us, man. With
yep.
us three, it's like over 100.
Oh
All
yeah,
right,
easily. I just got my
that's
first Polish site. I told you
look
that.
at that Poland.
Polish. Yeah.
With things, oh, we forgot one more, man. I haven't played with it, but MedVector for DCT,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
and I feel like
Yep.
we have to talk about it because DCT, decentralized. You brought up international. I think that's a huge unlock. I brought up loose alliances of sites, and there was new guidance yesterday. We're not going to get into all that, but
Yeah,
MedVector's got to be a
it's
consideration
on the
for a tech
list.
stack.
Yeah, I
Yeah, they
agree.
certainly seem to benefit a lot in the new guidance. It really seems to call out exactly the kind of thing they're addressing. So I think if you're a site, you need to start looking at that as an option. And if you're not, you're going to be behind.
What's
Mhm.
been your experiences, Brad? You've been using it, right, here and there.
Yeah, we have. It's like everything else. I think it's great uh, as a tool. You need to build some process around it because
Yep.
uh, as much as like maybe this may not make sense to people outside, but like if you're working with these like local HCPs, like they're basically it's like you're operating another site, even though you're not, you kind of are. So
Mhm.
yes, they're not maybe on a 1572, they're not a delegated, sub I necessarily, but you still have to manage
Yep.
a high degree of all those touch points because they're not going to do it, and you don't expect them to do it. That's why we exist, is so we provide that help and that infrastructure. So it's a great
Yep.
tool. It does sort of up the level of effort you need to put in as a site, but what it's going to do is pay off in spades at the end of the day, and you will have built
Mhm.
a ridiculously strong network by dragging these guys into the fold. So it's long term. It's long term, I think,
Long
to
term.
build that.
Yep. And Brad's spot on. I have sites in the network that are utilizing MedVector. The successful sites have a very strong SOP around it. And I mean, like, get your processes in order. MedVector can't write that for you because only you know what will work in your community. I mean, everything down from how to engage with your local physician all the way to how to close the site and what to do with equipment. It's as a utility, it's up to the site to write that really strong SOP. You have to.
Um, the way I told Scott, the founder, I'm looking forward to playing with it. I definitely see opportunities in my community. There's rural outskirts of Yuma and then Mexico, which is like 40 minutes away. That's to me, when you mentioned Poland, my
Yeah.
mind went to
Yeah.
international. We have to discuss MedVector because they're probably leading the way for making this practical for sites. Look, Brad's already doing it. You can't get more
Mhm.
practical than Brad randomizing patients with it.
Yep.
So, I mean,
Yep.
it's like it's working. We know it's working. It's just a matter of like, is it here long term? I told Scott, look, man, even if I'm digging my own grave as a site by helping you establish the foundations to potentially replace me, as a business owner, I need to figure out where we're gonna, how sites are gonna evolve. And speaking of digging your own graves, guys, okay, this is the conclusion. Let, let me know what you guys think. So maybe it's a hot take, I don't know, but look at what we've discussed so far. Okay, eSource monitor can do remote. Maybe IP accountability is the only thing. Like, okay, we got to figure out. That's another opportunity for somebody. Figure out how monitors can do IP accountability remotely.
Yes.
It's next, maybe. Okay, eSource, eReg. What does that mean so far? Remote monitoring. Okay. Versatile site organization. Okay. Site CRA communications, and you can make sure your sites are organized remotely. You don't need to go on site and say, like in 05, 06, my monitor came in and said, "Hey, do you know where your portals are?" Like she had to come in and ask me. You can do that remotely. And Nato, BizDev, feasibility, remote. We got it set up. Wait till we do like VR tours. We got that set up. Okay, what else did we discuss? MedVector, seeing patients from afar. Um, Loose alliances of site networks. Okay,
I see where you're going.
you see where
Mhm.
I'm going?
I think so. Yeah.
Everything is inching into CRO, traditional CRO space.
Yep.
Little by little. You don't notice it. It's like raising the temperature and like what's that
Mhm.
analogy for frogs?
Frog in a pot.
Yeah, yeah.
Won't
Everyone
even know
knows
it's
that.
dying. Yep.
Little by little. I already know site networks that have their own monitors for their own QA stuff to
Yep.
prepare for audits, and they have independent monitor go out that's in a site network. So you got feasibility, you got site relationships, you've got quality assurance. What else we're missing? Whatever we're missing, it's covered.
Finance. Don't forget your finance.
Okay, maybe we can pay sites on time with tech somehow, eventually.
Be nice.
So, do you think there's a day where CROs, when I said sites are digging their own graves, maybe CROs need to figure out how they can be a part of this or evolve? Or, I mean, they're not
Yeah, I
going
mean,
away tomorrow, but
no,
2033?
but I think, and I've said this for a little while now. I mean, I think the biggest threat is on the CROs. To your point, not the sites necessarily. I think the sites can evolve, and we are evolving. To meet a lot of those needs. And I think the CROs are the ones that should be maybe more nervous. Now, it sounds funny to say when I'm a little ass site network, and these are billion-dollar companies, but I also think though that that's why you see two different things happening. You see all this talk about progress, but then I mean, let's be really honest. We all work studies. It's all the same.
Yep.
These CROs want to come on site. They want to be here. They are continuing to do things in ridiculously, inefficient ways because they benefit from that. So I think if they still hold the cards, it's unlikely to change significantly unless they find a way to, monetize it to their advantage.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder if maybe that's what you're looking at, is you're looking at the sites starting to do CRO type activity, because what the CROs are doing is so inefficient that sites have to kind of do it to be better.
Mm.
So maybe we are actually strengthening. We're not necessarily digging our own graves, but we're digging someone else's.
Damn, you're aggressive as hell, Dr. Fox. I like that. Goodfella style.
And
May the
and
fourth
all,
be with
yeah.
you.
May the fourth be with you. So in
May
all
the fourth be
sincerity,
with you. Sometimes Jedis can become Siths, and
Yep.
I hope that these tech companies remain pure that we just mentioned, and don't become an acquisition of
Mhm.
someone we don't like.
But in all sincerity, I really do think the future is going to be that integration into healthcare, which means we're going to go right back to our roots. Those community sites are going to have the physician relationships. We're going to get patients on the trials. It's going to be at the site center, the site level, and I really do think you're going to see an integration into healthcare, and I think MedVector is part of that.
MedVector's part of it. Creo, Stephanie, forgot the big
Yep.
one. Forget
Yep.
the big one in that whole thing at the end. Creo, and I'm sure others like them, are pushing, guys. They are pushing for EDC to be removed.
Mm-hmm.
Like that also is like what connects all
It's
this
huge.
theory
It's huge.
together. That's a big part
Yeah.
of this.
And
by
I
the way.
don't.
And it's perfect.
Yeah.
There's no need. There's no need to do it twice. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Why are
Yep.
we doing this? It's completely insane. And that's why it's hard for me to think of a good reason aside from they thrive off of inefficiency. There's no good or other good reason to do it.
And I mean, in all sincerity, and I think I did something in the post about networking and how I really appreciate all the opportunities. But I don't care what logo is on the shirt that you're wearing. If you're in here, you're here for the sites and for the patients, then you're in here for the right reasons. That's all there is to it. This industry is huge. There's plenty of room for everyone to thrive.
Anything else, Brad? Dr. Fox? May the fourth be with you.
May the fourth be with you.
Like, subscribe, comment, share, guys. Bye bye.